The next one is what is mesothelioma trial? A mesothelioma trial is a legal proceeding that occurs when a mesothelioma patient or their family files a lawsuit against the company or employer responsible for the exposure to asbestos that caused the disease. Mesothelioma lawsuits typically seek compensation for medical expenses, lost wages, and pain and suffering. The trial process can vary depending on where the case is filed. In general, mesothelioma trials can either be resolved through a settlement agreement between the parties involved or through a trial in court. Settlement agreements. Many mesothelioma cases are resolved through a settlement agreement. A settlement agreement is a contract between the plaintiff, plaintiff and the defendant, in which the defendant agrees to pay a specified amount of money in exchange for the plaintiff dropping the lawsuit. Settlement agreements can be negotiated at any point in the legal process, including before or during the trial. The next one, settlement agreements can be beneficial for both parties. Settlement provides mesothelioma patients and their families with a faster resolution, a guaranteed monetary reward, and avoid the risk of losing a trial. For the defendant, settlements help avoid the adverse publicity that can arise from a trial and usually result in lower legal fees. Trial proceedings. If a settlement agreement cannot be reached, the mesothelioma case will proceed to trial. A mesothelioma trial can either be heard by a judge or a jury and typically consists of the following stages. First of all, jury selection. If a jury trial is requested, the trial will begin with jury selection. This process involves selecting a group of impartial individuals to hear the evidence and render a verdict. The next one, second, is opening statements. After the jury is selected, a trial will begin with the opening statements. The plaintiff's attorney will explain to the jury why they should find in favor of their client, while the defendant's attorney will explain why they should not. The third one is presentation of evidence. The presentation of evidence is the primary part of the mesothelioma trial. Both sides will present evidence, including medical records, testimony, testimony from doctors and witnesses, and documentation of asbestos exposure. The presentation of evidences can take several days or weeks, depending on the complexity of the case. The next one is closing arguments. After the evidence is presented, both parties will give a closing argument. The closing argument summarizes the evidence presented and attempts to persuade the jury to render a verdict in their favor. And the next one is jury instructions. The judge will provide the jury with instructions on how to apply the law to the evidence presented during the trial. The next one is verdict. After the jury has considered the evidence and deliberated, they will render a verdict. If the verdict is in favor of the plaintiff, the jury orders the defendant to pay the plaintiff a specified monetary award.